My project is Getting Girls in STEM, which sort of addresses what Brianne was asking about Andrew. Specifically, I want to start with an overview of my project. Ultimately, my goal is to host a one-day event at IPFW to encourage young middle school girls, specifically from underserved communities, to get interested in STEM topics. So it is semi-similar to Andrew's, but I will specifically be focusing on middle school girls and encouraging them. I'd like to focus around the Fort Wayne area. I think staying within the local area will be great for Fort Wayne to encourage it. We have so many different industries here that if we can really build that up from within, that would be incredible. I'd like these girls to get lots of experience with hands-on activities. I'll go into more detail about those later. And I think it'd be also great to get them different female speakers from within the community to show where these ladies have started off and where they have gone to and how to really bridge that gap for these girls. And for my research component, I will begin and end of the day with surveys, and I'll talk more about that later as well. So ultimately, what is my motivation and inspiration? Why did I choose this project? It's no surprise that there is a huge gender gap between males and females within the STEM workplace. That's not something you are probably all like, oh my gosh, that's a thing. No, we all know it. But I thought I'd just give some statistics to really help you guys understand some of the numbers of just how big this gap really is. So women make up about 50% of the workforce within the United States, no surprise, but only 26% of STEM workers are females. Women comprise about 20% of engineering school graduates, yet only about 15% of women practicing engineers are women. In 1993, women made up 21% of all workers in STEM. Through the span of 17 years, that statistic has only rose 7%. Now, this generation that is growing up, we are seeing that this is a problem and we are striving to fix it. But to see that in 17 years that's only rose 7% is still kind of sad. I would think that as that continues to go on and as we continue to empower these young women, that will be something that we can see grow even more. And this statistic really hit me kind of hard. If you would take, on average, 100 female studying whatever at a university, getting their bachelor's degree, only 12 of them would be graduating with a STEM degree. And yet, if you would follow those same women 10 years later, about only 3 of them would still be working within the STEM workforce. But that does not just apply to women in general. Specifically, it does apply to women of different nationalities and women of color too. So that would be something that I could even focus on here within Fort Wayne. I know some of these underserved schools have different ethnicities, and if I could target them as well, that would be awesome. Because we need more diversity, more variety within our workforce to really get a well-rounded group of people together. But this is not just a statistical motivation and inspiration for my project. It also hits very close to home as well. Most of you guys probably don't know that I did start off at IPFW as a civil engineer. Some of my classes were about 30 people, and if I was lucky, I was one of 4 girls, which for me made me very uncomfortable. I did experience a lot of bias from peers within my classes, and that was very frustrating for me. I'm not the kind of person who, when I experienced that, would back down. I would more set out to prove myself, but that doesn't apply to everyone. So if these young girls are coming up and growing up taking these classes, seeing this bias and being put in situations that make them uncomfortable, why would they stay if they don't have that mindset? So I really want to start them off early and get them knowing, like, this is something you can do. I know you can do this. And I experienced this myself, which is how I got where I am today. When I was in middle school, went to an event called Get Wise, which stood for Get Women in Science and Engineering. And it was an invitation-only event, which was great for me because I was like, oh my gosh, my teachers think I'm doing great. Yeah, I should go to this. This would be something that I could really achieve at and excel at. But it only focused on certain individuals. That's where I want my project to differ the most. I want it to be open to anyone who's interested, to anyone who might not have this opportunity otherwise. And this Get Wise event, as far as I know, I've tried looking it up online, but it is no longer going on. So I want to take what I've learned and try and continue it in some way. There, we also learned about different opportunities within science and engineering fields. We had learned about different problem solving through the activities, how to more think like things. And then at the end of the day, we took a tour of the General Motors factory where this event was held. So this is a major inspiration for me as why I chose this project. It hits very close to home for me. It's something I have experienced personally. And I want to take what I have learned and how I've gotten to where I am and try to give others the same opportunity. Give them the same confidence, which I think is huge for women going into STEM. And I want to give them the tools and the knowledge that they need so that they understand what they're doing. That if you take a physics class, that's going to help you if you go on into an engineering field. A lot of those things correlate, and I think that'd be really great to let them know before they get into these sorts of classes. So I will now go ahead and talk a little bit more about the details about my event. It will be, as far as I know, a one-day event at IPFW to get girls interested in STEM, and I think I've made that fairly clear. I would like to host it sometime around February, March, early spring of next year as well. My target audience is middle school girls. As I said, I'm targeting middle school because it's before they get to those hard classes, and Andrew also talked about that as well, specifically from the Fort Wayne area. I would like to have anywhere between 30-50 students. I think that's a good starting number. If this project would be sustained and continue on years down the road, I'd love to see that number grow, but for the first year, I think 30 to 50 students is pretty good for me. Specifically targeting the low socioeconomic, underserved kind of households for girls who don't necessarily get the opportunity. And I put this chart up for one reason. If you look at the first statistic, it says currently only 10% of high school girls are interested in STEM. And that's another reason why I want to target middle school. Because if they go into high school saying, oh, you know, I didn't really like this, I didn't really think that math was fun, that's fine. But you shouldn't completely knock out all STEM just because you don't like one subject. There's so much more to STEM than just algebra. And I'd like to expose that to some of these girls. Also, I talked about I want to try and get some local speakers, some women speakers. Of course, within the STEM workforce, places like Vera Bradley or Harris. If you don't know Harris, they build satellites and send them into space. I'd like these girls to learn from women who have been able to achieve this. I want these women to try and talk about maybe what they studied in school, what they took in high school, how that got to where they went in college, and ultimately what it was like for them to go through STEM as a woman, and how that has changed their perception, how that has changed their life. And I think it'd be really great for these girls to just be able to hear that from somebody who has experienced it firsthand. Also, for my research component, I will be taking surveys before and after. I know that this is also probably my weakest point of my project as well. It's not something that I know, like Andrew said, I can't follow them 10 years down the road and see what they're studying in college or if they went to graduate school or whatever. But I think it is important if I can get these girls who maybe don't think so great about STEM topics to see, oh yeah, I really like physics. This is something I want to go into. That would be awesome. And that's what I want to be able to find out if I did impact these girls at all. See maybe if their attitudes changed, if what they have in store for future education, if they're even thinking about going to college, getting a bachelor's degree, and ultimately maybe what their favorite experience was of the day. If they were really encouraged by a female speaker, or if they really liked, you know, doing this chemistry experiment where something exploded and that was cool. I'd like to be able to hear those things from these girls. So ultimately, here's a very general, rough timeline of the day, things that I'm kind of talking about and thinking about within my own mind. And all these times are completely arbitrary. I don't know if that's what's going to happen or not, so it's very rough. But as you can see, I have different activities, things that I want these girls to do. I want them to interact with each other and encourage each other just as much as they're interacting with science. So some of the activities that I've thought about, this one I thought was interesting. It's a STEM challenge. You try and build a building out of toothpicks, marshmallows, and cardboard, and then shake a tube of Jell-O and see if it can stand. Just simulate like what an earthquake would be like. So I probably can't talk about civil engineering topics because I'm not a civil engineer, but that comes along with going alongside other students at the university. So maybe I can find some other female civil engineers in the university, have them maybe talk about this project and what it means, what to look for, things like that. So another project that they could do, in this project it was marshmallows and spaghetti noodles, seeing who could build the bridge that holds the most amount of weight. So I want them to be able to compete and learn from these experiences, learn from their failures if they do, and just to know that, it takes time. It takes trial and error to learn these things. Another great project that I thought of, well, I guess I found on the internet, I didn't think of it. They made a or almost frictionless bearing, and through rotating, and it uses magnetic fields. That's how it's frictionless. And so girls can learn about mechanics through this. They could learn about magnetic fields, what these different forces are. So it'd be more physics applicable, but still within the field of STEM. And this project, it's kind of hard to see, I guess, on the projector, but they made a polymer of plastic out of milk. Who would have thought you could make plastic out of milk? So that's just something that girls interact with every day, or more than likely, and they didn't even know, probably, that they could do something like this. And then a last project, which is pretty familiar, is the classic elephant toothpaste. And so the interacting of two chemicals that create gas and make things blow up, which I think is pretty cool. But so ultimately, how do I get there? How do I get from point A to point B? And it's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of involvement from within the community and the university as well. But I'm willing to take on this challenge. So first of all, I'm going to have to work alongside IPFW. Of course, reserving a venue and getting involvement from different departments with the physics, biology, engineering, chemistry, all coming together for this one event. I'm going to need a bunch of different volunteers. That's pretty obvious. I can't do this all by myself if I'm going to have 30 to 50 students. So I'd like to partner with Society of Women Engineers that we have at IPFW. Maybe partner with the physics department and get some of those women physicists, along with myself studying chemistry, the chemistry club, being able to just kind of bring everybody together. Now, of course, I would like this event to be free if I'm going to be serving the low socioeconomic households. I don't want girls to have to pay for this or worry about having to come up with money to get supplies or food or anything. So I would like some sort of funding. Right now, I'm looking at the Indiana Campus Compact Grant, which Dr. Betsy Berry helped me find. And I'm also looking at maybe getting support from local companies within the community. So if I go out and say, I want a speaker from Vera Bradley, okay, well, would you guys be interested in sponsoring this event? Maybe get some donations. It doesn't have to be anything large, but maybe if they would supply pizza for the day for the girls for lunch. Something small like that, just, and get support from the community as well. And also, I'm going to need to contact local schools, get lots of excitement for this event, specifically Fort Wayne Community Schools or Eastern Allen County. I'm not entirely sure. If I could get both, that would be great. I did see a recent news article from Fort Wayne Community Schools that they are implementing new STEM topics within certain middle schools and high schools. So if I could come right alongside them and say, hey, I have this outlet for you guys, I think it would be perfect for you. Would you have any interest in letting your students know about this or spurring encouragement for this event? And also Boys and Girls Club for kids who might not have the best household to get away, just spend a day with friends and go to a college campus, because what kind of kid doesn't think that's cool? But ultimately, that's what I have so far. I think it's going to be really great to be able to equip these girls for the future and empower them, give them confidence for this event and for later in life as well. And these are some of my sources for statistics and pictures. And that is all I have. If you guys have any questions or suggestions, I would love to hear them.
So my one thought is logistics. Mm-hmm. How are we going to get these students to IPFW? right? So transportation can be a big issue. And so as you start looking for funding and as you start talking to Boys and Girls Club and to the schools, find out what transportation options there are already.
Okay.
You might find that getting them all to IPFW is a bigger challenge than you think. And so an adaptation that you might consider is modeling it a little bit after Andrew, where you have sort of a kit that you take with you and you go to different schools and do the same like after school program at different schools, like a one time, one evening sort of thing. If you find that simply getting kids to IPFW is a challenge.
Okay, yeah, I like that. It's a great question.
So you said you were aiming for 30 to 50 girls for the first time this project, and if it kept going over time, you might want to add more. So I assume you probably want to apply for funding
Yes.
before anyone applies or any of that.
Yes.
So in a situation where you have some allotted amount of money and you have more than that amount of people sign up, would you search for extra funding after or set a limit at 50 people that could participate?
That is a great question. My first thought would be that's when I could, if I would get a grant, let's say I get a grant, get some money, and it's not enough. That is when I would prefer to go out to companies and say, hey, I have this need. Would you be willing to help me? I don't want to limit anybody if at all possible. That is the whole point of my project. I want everybody to be able to come and experience this if possible. So that is a great question. I had not thought about that. But yeah, I think that's probably what I would do first, is try to contact others, find other support somewhere else rather than limit it.
I was just curious if you had given any thought to how you want teachers to communicate this event to their students. Like you were talking about, you got a physical letter, like an invitation, and that probably meant a lot to you to get that personally. So is it giving teachers a bunch of copies to hand out to girls in their classes, or just have you given any thought to how you want to communicate that to them?
Yeah, I have thought about that. Thanks for asking that. I had not mentioned that at all. I would like to, if I generate enough interest, do something simple like a flyer. But realistically, that's probably not going to generate enough interest. So that's part of the reason why I want to contact local schools and teachers as well and see, okay, if there's any interest, could I come in and just spend like one afternoon or a lunch period and just talk with some of these girls who might be interested? Would that be sort of an invitation for them? Yes, because then they could experience like firsthand an invite from someone who wants them to come, who is striving and pushing them to do this. That's what I would like to do, maybe a little combination of both, depending on what the school would think is best. So it'll take a lot of communication between the school and I, but I'd like to do a little bit of both if possible. Yeah.
Just a bit of a suggestion. I think this is a brilliant idea because, if anything, there's sort of the elimination or at least the decrease of the challenges or the glass ceiling for women to enter places that are predominantly, you know, ruled by men and so on and so forth. But one big thing to keep in mind for the long term, not necessarily in an event for one day during, you know, the year and what have you, but maybe there should be a partnership with places like Science Central, right? Where you can develop something as an ongoing, or perhaps have volunteers from your department, students such as yourself, kind of, you know, continue to mentor these students to kind of, you know, lift and leverage their skills and interests and kind of help them break down those barriers. So just a thought.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I like that. Yes, Brooke.
So I know that you said that you really mainly wanted to target the middle school girls, and that is so awesome. It really is. But I mean, there are definitely high school girls out there who could really use some encouragement and who maybe have never experienced anybody encouraging them to go into STEM. I know that I didn't, and here I am majoring in computer science. So I think that it would have been really helpful, and I wouldn't have started so late on CS if somebody had maybe encouraged me. So do you think that there is maybe a way that you could incorporate those older girls who could maybe use a little bit of a boost or encouragement maybe by recruiting them as volunteers to help with the activities, or maybe kind of buddying them up
Yeah,
with
that'd
the
be
younger
great.
girls so that they can develop a relationship and kind of mutually encourage each other and just connect with other women in the field.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I know I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I didn't really start thinking about STEM until, junior, senior year of high school, and by then, you kind of already have to have your life planned out. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. Even contacting high schools as well, even for like volunteers. I think that's awesome. I didn't eventually, or even till now, think of that. But yeah, I really like that suggestion. Anybody else? No? All right.